Herbert's creation of this universe, with its intricate development and analysis of ecology, religion, politics, and philosophy, remains one of the supreme and seminal achievements in science fiction. With the recent release of the trailer for the up-and-coming Dune 2020 movie directed by Denis Villeneuve, interest and hype for Dune is at an all-time high. Many laymen are interested in knowing what exactly is Dune. This video will give a comprehensive and detailed introduction to the epic Dune universe created by Frank Herbert. The Dune Saga and franchise, written by Frank Herbert, is an epic science fiction series set in humanity's distant future. Frank Herbert's Dune series is considered a landmark of soft science fiction. In it, he deliberately spent little time on the details of its futuristic technology so he could devote it chiefly to addressing the politics, nature, and evolution of humanity itself, rather than the future of humanity's technology and creations. Psychoanalysis and philosophy largely drives the story and plot forward. The Dune universe has a long, complex, and deep history and lore which can rival the worlds created by J.R.R. Tolkien and George R.R. Martin. The story first begins 20,000 years in our distant future. In order to understand the current setting of the Dune universe that we first learn about in the first novel, we need to look at a major historical event in the Dune universe, which is officially known as the Butlerian Jihad. Once men turned their thinking over to machines, in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. More than 10,000 years before the setting of the first novel, and over 10,000 years in our future, a religious war known as the Butlerian Jihad destroyed all artificial intelligences and banned the creation of thinking machines. Even the simplest computers and calculators were banned, with the penalty for building or owning such a thinking machine technology being put to trial and sentenced to immediate death. The god of machine logic was overthrown by the masses, and a new concept was raised. Man may not be replaced, and thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. This led to a large technological reversal of the entire human civilization. Non-thinking machines, however, were still utilised. Aside from the high casualties and harsh and long-lasting effects of the jihad, the belief in the spiritual divinity of mankind was renewed in contrast to the evil and blasphemous nature of the thinking machines. The ban on artificial intelligence forced human beings to evolve to higher forms and develop their mental and physical capacities. Numerous groups and organisations would be formed after the events of the Butlerian Jihad. One of these groups were the Mentats. Mentats are people who are highly skilled in logic, computing, and cognitive thinking. Mentats can be thought of as biological human computers, replacing thinking machines after the Butlerian Jihad. Mentats can perform vast calculations within milliseconds. More than simply calculators, Mentats possess exceptional cognitive abilities of memory and perception that enable them to assess large volumes of data and devise concise analyses. Mentats bring an ethical component to their computing and logic-based assessments in contrast to past thinking machines, although some Mentats could become corrupted as twisted Mentats. The ability to be a Mentat is a talent limited to a small number of people. Mentats were used and employed extensively by many great houses, primarily as political advisors. Another group is the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood. The Bene Gesserit Sisterhood is a quasi-religious order made up of mostly women. The Sisterhood has honed human physical and psychic abilities, endowing them with remarkable skills as fighters, mind readers, negotiators, and all-around manipulators. For example, physically, a Bene Gesserit could control every muscle and nerve in their body, right down to the individual fibres. The Bene Gesserit also use an ability called the Voice that can bend people to their will. The Bene Gesserit also have the unique ability to unlock their genetic memories and look back at past generations of Bene Gesserits and learn directly from their history. However, members can only see the memories and actions of female Bene Gesserits. The male history is inaccessible to them. The ultimate goal of the Bene Gesserit sisterhood is to guide the future evolution of mankind towards enlightenment, their main method being through eugenic breeding programs. The anticipated means of reaching this goal was through the creation of a male Bene Gesserit they call the Kwisatz Haderach, the one who can be all places at once. The Kwisatz Haderach would effectively be a super being with supreme prescient powers. He would be able to unlock genetic memories from male and female ancestors, and he would be the bridge between past, present, and future. The Bene Gesserit effectively act as a shadow government, pulling all the strings from behind the scenes, manipulating noble houses and entire people. One specific Bene Gesserit tactic is their development of the Missionaro Protectiva. This can be seen as a form of religious and social engineering. These sisters were responsible for planting myths and superstition amongst primitive early civilizations. By linking the Bene Gesserit to these legends, the Order is able to protect themselves and attain power for future generations, as well as paving the way for these primitive peoples to embrace what they believe to be their future messiah, the Bene Gesserit's own Kwisatz Haderach. After the Bene Gesserit, the Spacing Guild was the second mental physical training school established following the Butlerian Jihad. The Spacing Guild has learned to replace computers for faster-than-light travel with the mental powers of its navigators, who are mutated humans with prescient awareness that allows them to pilot faster-than-light ships. The genesis of the Spacing Guild's eventual monopoly on all of space travel, transport, and upon international banking is taken as the beginning point of the Imperial calendar. The Spacing Guild binds the Empire together by joining the Million Worlds in an interdependent economy that allows citizens of different worlds to offer their goods and services to all who can afford them. The Spacing Guild is officially apolitical, being mainly focused on the economic arena, and will not pursue any political goals directly or indirectly beyond their economic interests. The last major impact and legacy of the Butlerian Jihad was the rise of a new political system in its aftermath, a neo-feudal arranged galactic order that would last for several thousand more years. This new order would become known as the Imperium, or the Galactic Padishah Empire, later on in the series referred to as the Old Imperium, and it would encompass the entire known universe of humanity at the time. The Imperium provided our economic, political, and sociological framework within which the Farth-Relutia class system operated. The head of this new political system is the Padishah Emperor, who are the hereditary sovereign rulers of the Imperium. Members of the royal and noble house Carino sit on the Golden Lion throne as Padishah Emperors. Originally, the imperial seat of power of House Carino was on the planet Seleucia Secundus. Later on, the imperial court had moved to the planet Caetane. The planet Seleucia Secundus afterwards became House Carino's prison planet. By the time of the first Dune novel, there has been 81 Padishah Emperors from the House Carino, which have continuously been the sovereign rulers of the Imperium for over 10,000 years. The power of the Padishah Emperors is secured through the control and allegiance of a brutal military force known as the Imperial Sardaukar. The Sardaukar are secretly trained on the inhospitable imperial prison planet Seleucia Secundus, and the harsh conditions there ensure that only the strongest and most ferocious men of the Sardaukar survive. The Sardaukar are fanatically loyal to the Padishah Emperor and were the best fighting military during the time of the first novel. In effect, the Imperial Sardaukar can be thought of as space Spartans. While it is true that the Padishah Emperor was seen as the supreme and ultimate ruler of the Imperium and known universe, power was effectively shared in this neo-feudalistic system. In this new political system are great houses, families of nobility who have been granted their status by the Emperor and have their own miniature empires. The heads of the great houses are essentially vassals, people entrusted by the Emperor to secure a section of his great Imperium and given a title of nobility. In return, they must pay a small tithe to the Imperium. The three most famous great houses and noble families in the Dune series are House Atreides, House Harkonnen and House Corrino. During one phase in the Dune novel, the planets Caladan and Arrakis, which are both owned by House Atreides at different points in time, are referred to as the Fief of Caladan and the Fief of Arrakis. Fief is the word in feudalism for the territories given to the vassals to defend and gather taxes from. We have a three-point civilization, the Imperial household, balanced against the federated great houses of the Landsraad, and between them, the Guild with its damnable monopoly on interstellar transport. The Landsraad is a political body. Essentially, it is an assembly of all noble families and great houses in the Imperium. This political body plays a very important role in the political and economic power balance of the Imperium, which is shared amongst the Landsraad, the Spacing Guild, and the Padishah Emperor himself. The Landsraad represents the unification of all the other ruling great houses in the Imperium, which helps maintain the class and social hierarchy of the Imperium. It is also intended to create a check against the centralized autocratic power of the Padishah Emperor, which would hopefully leave the Imperium in perpetual peace, even though many of the great houses would still indirectly compete with one another for power. A monumental achievement of the Landsraad was through the signing of a historical treaty, referred to as the Great Convention. This treaty prohibited the use of atomics against human targets, driven by the philosophical guideline that human life is superior to other possible life forms, and thus human life was to be protected. Atomics could only be used in the event of an existential threat against humanity, an example being a dangerous alien life force. An organisation in the Imperium that connects the great houses in the Landsraad, the Spacing Guild and the Padishah Emperor is CHOAM. CHOAM controls all the economic affairs across the Imperium and determined the incomes and wealth of the great houses. Because of its control over economic interplanetary commerce, it is the largest single source of wealth in the Imperium. The structure of CHOAM is similar to that of a publicly held corporation. CHOAM consists of shareholders and, as in a public company, major shareholders are given directorships to lead in the board of directors. All shareholders are nobles from the Landsraad, which consists of not only the great houses and the Imperial House, but also minor houses. The Spacing Guild and the Bene Gesserit are also silent partners within CHOAM. The great houses of the Landsraad hold the directorships of the company, but the Emperor is able to give out directorships and revoke directorships at whim. CHOAM relies on the Spacing Guild due to their monopoly on space travel, and the Spacing Guild relies on CHOAM for their economic goods and products. There are other smaller but influential groups and organisations in the Imperium, one of them being the Sook School. The Sook School is a prominent medical school in the Imperium. Sook doctors are the most skilled and trusted doctors. Sook doctors who have received what is referred to as the Sook Imperial Conditioning bear a black diamond tattoo on their foreheads and, at least theoretically, are incapable of inflicting harm. The most well-known Sook doctor in the Dune series is Dr. Wellerton Yueh from the first Dune novel. Another unique group are the Swordmasters of Ginaz. This group is essentially a school of martial artists. The most well-known of the Swordmasters in the Dune series is Duncan Idaho, who first appears in the first Dune novel. He is loyal to House Atreides. Many people, when first introduced to Dune, Wonder why, if technology has advanced to the point where humans can travel through space, and humans also possess firearms like laser guns, why do people in this universe still fight with swords? This is explained with the Holtzman Effect. The Holtzman Effect is a scientific theory relating to the repellent force of subatomic particles. This effect would lead to the creation of a special type of shielding that would be able to repel fast-moving projectiles. When the laser beams of a laser gun hit a body shield or ship shield, the result would be something close to the level of an atomic bomb going off. The resulting explosion would end up killing both users. However, slow-moving objects could pass through the shield. This is why soldiers and people have gone back to fighting with different types of swords and daggers, as it is a refined ability to be able to wield your weapon slow enough to penetrate an enemy's shield's kinetic barrier. There are numerous fringe worlds in the known universe that are universally distrusted. The two most successful societies among the fringe worlds are the Bene Tleilax and the Ixians. The Bene Tleilax, or Tleilaxu, are a group of genetically altered humans who inhabit the planet Tleilax. They push the bounds of what it means to be human through their genetic experimentation, seeking spiritual elevation through physical refinement. They are a highly secretive people, and their society can be described as isolationist and xenophobic. Their culture and hierarchy is extremely patriarchal, in contrast to the extreme matriarchal system of the Bene Gesserit group. They are chiefly known for their biological products, such as artificial eyes, twisted mentats, and gaolers. A gaoler was an artificially created human who was replicated from a dead individual. The Tleilaxu are despised and distrusted by the rest of the inhabitants of the Imperium due to their behaviours, customs, and ethics. The Bene Tleilax has a strict class and social hierarchy. Each class had a distinct physical appearance. At the top of the hierarchy are the Tleilaxu Masters, the next class being axolotl tanks, which are essentially incubation vessels used for breeding. It is believed these are all that remain of the Tleilaxu females. And finally, at the bottom are the face dancers, who make up the warrior and working class of the society. Face dancers are able to adapt and effectively shapeshift their physical appearance. The Tleilaxu use their abilities for espionage throughout the Imperium. The Ixians' home planet is called Ix. The name of the planet Ix is actually the Roman numeral 9, simply being the 9th planet in its solar system. The Ixians are a technological culture who provide sophisticated mechanical devices to the rest of the Imperium. The Ixians are at the core of most technological advances, and because of this, the Ixians have deep ties within the Imperium. They are essentially an industrial world, dealing with machines instead of flesh, as the Tleilaxu do, in the same way that the Tleilaxu push the boundaries of what's right and wrong with human flesh. The Ixians push the boundaries of what's right and wrong with machines. The technology of the Ixians sometimes pushes the boundaries of the prohibitions against computers and artificial intelligence in the aftermath of the Butlerian Jihad. The most valuable commodity in the known universe that groups and organisations like the Space Guild, CHOAM and the Bene Gesserit are dependent upon for their powers and control is a geriatric substance called the Spice Melange. One of the side effects for users highly addicted to the spice is the user's eyes turning a dark shade of blue, blue in blue eyes, or the eyes of the Abad. The spice has the power to extend life and expand consciousness. It can also unlock prescient powers in unique individuals. The Bene Gesserit use the spice to heighten their awareness. The reason why the guild navigators within the Space Guild are so highly mutated is due to the extreme exposure to the Spice Melange. This exposure to the drug, however, allows them to mentally condition themselves with a form of prescient power that makes it possible for them to use safe, faster than light space travel throughout the known universe. And since the Imperium of the galaxy depends on space travel, the spice is the most valuable substance in the universe. Without the spice, the Imperium would fall. Without the spice, vast amounts of people in the Imperium would also die. This is because once a person has become addicted to the spice, they have to keep taking it, otherwise the withdrawals from the spice would kill you. There is no cure for spice withdrawal. Essentially, he who controls the spice controls the universe, and it is found on only one planet, the desert planet of Arrakis, better known informally as Dune. Arrakis would be relatively untouched and forgotten, but the spice makes this desert planet valuable. Noble houses and groups competing with one another for control of the spice is a major theme in the series. Extracting the Spice Melange is notoriously difficult. This is due to the existence of the predominant life form referred to as sandworms. Sandworms are colossal titanic worm-like creatures that live on the desert planet Arrakis. It is reported that some sandworms can grow to be 450 meters. Sandworms live beneath the sand and are attracted to rhythmic vibrations on the planet's surface. Due to their territorial nature, they would breach the planet's surface in pursuit of the origin of such vibration. The sandworm's life cycle is essential for the creation of the Spice Melange. Spice Melange is formed deep beneath the sands of Arrakis, where the fungal excretions of the sandworm's larvae mixes with water to form a mass that eventually explodes to the surface due to the planet's extreme heat. Without the sandworms, there is no spice. The longevity of the sandworm was supposedly extreme, estimated in the thousands of years. The sandworms are nearly indestructible. Atomics are the only explosions capable of killing a sandworm, but they have been banned throughout the Imperium. Water is also fatal to a sandworm, even in small dosages. Water that entered a sandworm's body would act as a catalyst to accelerate its metabolism to the point that its vital biological functions failed. This process was done from time to time, since the byproduct of the sandworm water mixture was the highly toxic poison called the Water of Life, which the Reverend Mothers of the Bene Gesserit used on various occasions. Arrakis is borderline inhabitable to humans. The native Fremen tribes live in the deep deserts of Arrakis, outside of the few cities on the planet. The Fremen are a secretive and misunderstood tribe of humans. The Fremen have been long overlooked by the rest of the Imperium and are looked upon as backward and barbaric savages. In reality, they are an extremely hardened people and exist in large numbers. Their culture built around the commodity of water, which is extremely scarce on Arrakis. They have also over the centuries gained mastery over the sandworms of Arrakis, whom they refer to as Shai-hulud. The Fremen have learned to avoid sandworm attacks by mimicking the motions of desert animals on the planet's surface. To the planet's Fremen population, the creature was also a spiritual symbol of their religious faith, and saw them as physical embodiments and incarnations of the one god of their original Zen Sunni religion. The Fremen are only able to survive because of their complex systems to conserve water and their belief that a messiah will revolutionize Arrakis one day, an idea planted by the Bene Gesserit. All of this sets the foundation for the setting for the first Dune novel, which begins in the year 10,191 AG, over 20,000 years in our future and 10,000 years after the Butlerian Jihad. The first Dune novel mainly follows the life and perspective of Paul Atreides and his family. Paul is the son of Duke Leto Atreides and his concubine, the Lady Jessica. Lady Jessica is more than Leto's concubine. She's also a member of the Bene Gesserit and trains Paul in the Bene Gesserit ways. Meanwhile, Leto trains Paul as a Mentat. The Bene Gesserit ordered Jessica to only have daughters to Duke Leto as part of their breeding program, but because of the love she bears for him, she defied those orders and had a son. Due to Lady Jessica's disobedience, the Bene Gesserit sisterhood is worried that the Kwisatz Haderach, their prophesied omniscient superbeing, has arrived a generation earlier than planned. The Sisterhood give Paul the Gom Jabbar test and monitor him very closely. Duke Leto rules over the planet Caladan, the planet where Paul was born. This planet has been under the control of House Atreides for 26 generations. At the beginning of the book, House Atreides are preparing to move to the planet Arrakis, which Leto has been given stewardship over by the 81st Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV of the House Carino himself. Danger lies around every corner for House Atreides, who are despised by their biggest rivals, House Harkonnen, who are fiefdom of the planet Gidi Prime and are led by the psychopathic and master manipulator Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. The story explores the multi-layered interactions of politics, religion, ecology, social engineering, realpolitik, technology and human emotion as the factions of the Imperium confront each other in a colossal struggle for control of Arrakis and its valuable spice. Paul's journey changes everything, and his actions in the first novel leaves a lasting impact and legacy that affects the known universe for millennia to come. It is this book that Denis Villeneuve is adapting to the big screen. This is a monumental task, and if this movie is great and a big success, it could launch Dune into the top of pop culture and bring a whole new generation into the world that Frank Herbert first created. When it comes to the books, you may or may not want to read the franchise in perfect chronological order. In my opinion though, I strongly recommend reading the original novels first in the order they were published. The original Dune Saga was written by Frank Herbert and it contains a total of 6 books. The story itself spans over the course of 5,000 years. The first being Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, and Chapter House Dune. Tragically, Frank Herbert died before he could finish writing a planned 7th novel in the series. I would also highly recommend this video I made in which I argue the case for why you should read Frank Herbert's original Dune Saga. After Frank Herbert's death, his son Brian Herbert, together with Kevin J. Anderson, would go on to write prequels, books in the middle, and the ending to the series. These books and short stories written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson is referred to as the Expanded Dune. The Expanded Dune series can be broken down into Legends of Dune, Great Schools of Dune, Prelude to Dune, Heroes of Dune, and Sequels of Dune. Legends of Dune is a prequel trilogy that takes place over 10,000 years before the events of the original novel Dune, and chronicles the universe-spanning war against thinking machines that would eventually become known as the Butlerian Jihad. This trilogy also chronicles the origins of many noble houses in the series. The Great Schools of Dune is a prequel trilogy that is a sequel to the Legends of Dune prequel trilogy. The Prelude to Dune trilogy takes place in the years leading up to the events in the original novel Dune and explores the origins of some of its characters. Heroes of Dune is a planned tetralogy which is intended to fill in the story between Frank Herbert's early Dune novels. 2 more books in the series were planned but have both been currently put on indefinite hold. The Sequels of Dune is a 2-book series, Hunters of Dune and Sandworms of Dune. These 2 books take place after the events in the 6th and final book in the original Dune Saga, Chapter House Dune. These 2 books complete the chronological progression of Frank Herbert's original series. In addition to all this new expanded Dune material, Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson have also published Dune short stories. In July 2020, Herbert and Anderson announced a new trilogy of prequel novels called the Caladan Trilogy. The first novel in the series, The Duke of Caladan, will be published in October 2020. Even though Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson have added a lot of new material to the Dune universe, these books are a subject of continuous controversy within the Dune community and fan base. A quick side note, the Dune Encyclopedia is technically a part of the franchise, but sort of apocryphal at this point. It's not in print anymore, mostly because it contradicts some of the novels in the expanded Dune canon. Frank Herbert himself approved of the encyclopedia, but held his own counsel on some of the issues still to be explored. The Dune Encyclopedia is adored by many fans to this day, who consider it a worthwhile read that's rich in lore, but it's not considered canon by Herbert Properties. The Dune Universe is one of the biggest, complex, and most detailed worlds ever created. It is one of the monuments of science fiction, and I believe Dune is more relevant now than when it was first published. Hopefully, this video was able to bring some clarity to the epic universe Frank Herbert created. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like this video, comment down below and subscribe to the channel. More Dune content is coming in the future.